Now, if what I have been saying about basic training, about our fundamental instruction that we need as human beings is true, and I believe it is, then it produces a direct consequence, a direct number of implications about what the experience of therapy and what should go on in the therapeutic experience, what it should be. Now, there's a kind of watchword that comes out of the classical discussion of therapy, which says it is not a corrective emotional experience. And I want to flat footedly contradict that. I would maintain that really effective, really good therapy must be a corrective emotional experience. So I want to say that explicitly and right out. Now, what I mean by that is that it is possible and that there is real hope here, no matter what kind of content anyone has received for his or her original basic training. Now, the point is that if we are looking for a reflection upon and a support for what we are as beings, then any kind of emotional or psychological difficulty that we subsequently have is the product of not having been witnessed in that way. So there is a sadness, there is a confusion, there is a lack of awareness, there is a blindness, there is a doubt, there is any number of forms, any number of ways in which we are led to doubt, to not see, to be blind to what it is we really possess. And so if there's anything that therapy ought to accomplish, is that it helps us to achieve, to rectify, to correct those dents that have been put into our being, that is by training that has been inadequate. Now that points, first of all, to the importance of this thing I've mentioned already, which is a sense of empathy. In other words, if I as a therapist, if I as an individual have courageously, and it sometimes takes that, more and more understood what has gone on in myself, then what I will be able to do is to more and more understand what has gone on in you. And I have to say, as a therapist, that has been my persistent experience with every single one of my clients. Every single one of them, male or female, has invariably taught me many, many things, shown me, instructed me, allowed me to learn. And the point about that is that it allows me to see just what it is that is the form of the dent, of the unhappiness, of the lack that has been inflicted upon them. And my feeling is that anyone in therapy needs fundamentally to feel welcomed in the sense that he or she is taken in or understood in terms of what they individually are really feeling. Now, sometimes it becomes a very complicated process because the individual involved, especially if he or she has been raised in a confusing, chaotic emotional environment, they don't really fully know. And so the challenge in that instance is that even chaos, even disorder, even the inability to settle in it needs fundamentally to be welcomed. But if you feel that you've never been supported, that needs to be taken in. If you feel that you've been attacked, that needs to be taken in. If you feel you've never been loved, that needs to be taken in, and so on. In other words, it's part of this individuality, it's part of this very personal quality to the nature of basic training that I've been stressing over and over again. The individual way in which you as a person feel that your basic training has operated needs to fundamentally be taken in, fundamentally be acknowledged, and so on. And I think I used an instance of a man I was talking to many years ago, but I'll repeat this if I haven't already. Many, many years ago, I had a friend who was a very, very handsome guy. He was just utterly gorgeous man. And he had a girlfriend that he was crazy about. And he cheated on her, and she broke off the relationship. And I found out about it about 3 or 4 days after it had happened. And I called him up and I said, oh my God, you must feel like 15 tons of shit. Must be awful. And now listen to my words. They are apparently negative. I mean, not a very positive thing to feel like 15 tons of shit. But his reaction was instructive to me. What he said was, oh, God, you're the first one who didn't say, I'm so handsome, I'll soon have another woman. You're the first one who didn't say, time heals all, I'll feel better in no time. You're the first one who didn't say, there are lots of fish in the sea, I'll have another girl in no time. I do feel like 15 tons of shit, and thanks for getting it. Now, that taught me this. You see that? Words that are apparently negative in their content. Oh, don't say that kind of thing to somebody. No. He felt that he was taken in by those words, and that's been a guiding insight for me ever since. You see that whatever the particular individual is experiencing is the way he or she took in the experience to start with. I'm never understood. I'm not listened to. No one pays attention to me. I am not instructed. They don't want me to succeed. They don't want me to be bigger than they are. Whatever it is, you see. If I don't welcome that fundamental experience, if I don't take it in and receive it, if it isn't okay between my client and me, then he or she is not going to feel welcomed, is not going to feel like he or she can safely enter into the dialogue that we have. And therefore, we cannot make any further progress in the development of what's needed, you see. On the other hand, speaking positively, if my client feels as though he or she is welcomed and can bring whatever it is that he, including, had one the other day who said to me, I feel like you're pushing me around, I want you to shut up. And he was certain, because he has the kind of upbringing that he has, that I was going to throw him out, that would be the end of our relationship. And in fact, I was ecstatic when he said it, because I knew that he never got to say that, and that he was allowing himself into the room between him and me by doing that. And he couldn't believe, he repeated it since, that that was okay, and it was more than okay, it was welcome, because that's the beginning of doing real work together. Now, the unfortunate implication of what I'm saying is that often the gateway to progress in the development of the therapeutic relationship is a realization, is an experience, is an encounter with, however it works, the pain, the hurt, the devastation that was the emotional content of my experience in my growing up time. So very often, a gush of tears, very often a kind of sudden expelling of breath, a kind of, that kind of thing, in my view, is to be greeted, is to be welcomed, is to be rejoiced in, as the beginning of the experience of my real self, of who I really am and what I'm really like. And of course it feels negative, of course it feels terrible. And very often I will say to welcome, you're beginning, this is terrific. And often enough I'm confronted with disbelief, come on, it can't be right. I call these tears, these kinds of bodily feeling reactions, the tears of recognition, because they are the beginning of my recognition of myself, of my welcoming of myself. And that means I come in the door with as bloody, as wounded, as defeated, as negated, as attacked, as defective, as gapped, you see, by my upbringing, as really was the case. In some cases, it's hard to believe that this man, this woman, can succeed in the world when they've been attacked and negated in such a systematic way. But there are individuals for whom the basic training is that negative. So there's a important recognition of just how bad or to what degree it was that needs to occur when this process begins. But no matter how bad it is, no matter how painful it is, no matter how much of a gap it contains, no matter how much of a lacuna is my word for it, has been inflicted upon me when I feel it, when I welcome it. You see, I am in fact welcoming myself into the process. So in a way, very often I make the comparison to those initiation rituals that were conducted in primitive societies. One is welcomed into one's womanhood, one welcomed into one's manhood, a joyous, welcoming event with the infliction of a terrible kind of pain. Now, what did those people know that we don't know, that we want to essentially obliterate with a pill, you see, is that the experience of adulthood would come with that mixture, you see, and that I have been raised with that mixture in myself, and therefore I am welcoming myself into my world, into my life, into the existence I'm going to have if I know I will have both of those things, pleasure and pain, joy and sorrow, excitement and depression, those kinds of things. Well, welcome to yourself. Welcome to myself. And that, I think, is the fundamental keynote of what good therapy would be. Now, what we need to do is, in subsequent talks, I hope we will do that, which is to discuss some of the details, some of the specific ways in which that could be done. But this describes what I believe to be the overarching, the fundamental intention, the fundamental direction in which good therapy should go. Let's hope we can talk more about that.